What's up, everyone? This is Noa Dalzell, and I'm here with another episode of WNBA Today on CLNS, shortly after the Las Vegas Aces defeat the Phoenix Mercury 91-78 in Game 2 of the WNBA Finals to take a 2-0 lead in this best-of-7 series. And honestly, those of you that have been watching my channel know that I picked the Mercury to win this series in 7. And I've done a complete 180. After Game 1, I felt like the Mercury were going to come back and respond just as they have every series so far. They've dropped all 3 Game 1s, but in the prior 2 series, they've come back and they've won Game 2, and that's been all the difference. And in this game, they had a little bit of an early lead, but A'ja Wilson took over in the second quarter. Jackie Young took over in the third quarter, and this game was over. And so wanted to talk a little bit about Game 2 and kind of what stood out to me from this one. But most importantly, the big question I have now in my mind is this series over? And I know what you're thinking. This is a premature question. It's only Game 2. It's not best of 5. Like, teams come back from this. Obviously, there's no history of best of 7 in the WNBA side, but teams come back from best of 2, from being down 2-0 in the NBA Finals. And the Mercury are about to head back to Phoenix to host the next games, in their home court. But this game was very concerning to me. And honestly, I've lost faith in the Mercury winning this series. And again, basketball analysis and predictions, you your best to come up with what you think is going to happen next, but it's an unpredictable sport. So maybe I'll come back here after Game 3 and say the Mercury are so back. But right now, in this game, it was a couple of things were obvious to me. So number one, the Mercury just do not have an answer for A'ja Wilson at all. And she was relatively quiet in Game 1. She had 21 points. But it's been clear throughout the series that regardless of who's guarding her, whether that's Alyssa Thomas, whether that's Satu Sabali or Dewana Bonner, who got a couple of, unfortunately for her, had to guard A'ja Wilson a number of times in this game. A'ja Wilson does not have somebody on this Mercury team that really gets under her skin. In the Indiana Fever series, you saw Aaliyah Boston. Despite the fact that A'ja Wilson had some big-time performances, when you look at her averages for that series, she had an impressive 5-game run. It was obvious that she had to work hard for every basket that she got. That hasn't been the case against the Mercury. In long term, thinking about how this is going to span over a 7-game series, it's not going to bode well. A part of me was thinking you have Kalani Brown on the bench. Like, she only played the last 4 minutes of this game. I think she's 6'6". She's one of the taller players in the WNBA. And so maybe you put her on the court and see if you can give A'ja Wilson a little bit of a different look. I don't know. I'm not even saying that should be the adjustment that Nate Tibbetts makes. But it was extremely clear in this game that A'ja Wilson, there's not really an answer for her on the Phoenix side. And that was true during the regular season as well, when the Aces won all 3 games against the Mercury. So I'm going back to my prediction of, like, why did I pick the Mercury to win best of 7? And I was going off of how this postseason run has been going and how the Aces just haven't had these marquee moments where they've stepped up the way that they needed to. It almost feels like they kind of stole a few of these games. Game 2 was a championship performance. Game 1 was a championship performance. And this Las Vegas team looks completely on their way to winning their 3rd WNBA title in 4 seasons. So just looking at the stats here, obviously Game 1 was all about Dana Evans and Jewel Lloyd off the bench. The duo combined for 39 points after averaging a combined 14 points in these playoffs. So just a big, big time performance from them. And they kind of bailed out Jackie Young and Chelsea Gray, who did not have big time performances. And that's what happens in road to championships. Role players step up and they have their role player games. And in this game, Jewel Lloyd had 9 points and Dana Evans had 5. And they were totally fine. Dana Evans actually had 5 consecutive points in the fourth quarter. They were actually pretty important to stalling the Mercury's sort of run to come back into this game. But this was not about the bench. This game was all about the big 3. And when I first started talking about the series, I was talking about how this is really a battle between 2 teams' big 3. Both teams have exceptional talent on their side. The Aces have A'ja Wilson, Chelsea Gray, and Jackie Young. The Phoenix Mercury have Satu Sabali, Alyssa Thomas, and Kalia Copper. And they have right now, in recency bias, they had been playing better in these playoffs. But big picture, the Aces' big 3 has been there before. They've won 2 championships together, and they now seem well on their way to a 3rd. In this game, A'ja Wilson had 28 points, 14 rebounds, and 3 assists, and 20 of those 28 points came in the first half. which ties a WNBA Finals record for most points in a first half of a finals game with Kahleah Copper in 2021 and Angel McCoughtry. So that was the talk of the town in halftime, was that A'ja Wilson is on her way to another extraordinary performance. And she only scored 8 points in the second half, and that wasn't because she struggled at all. She was 13 of 23 in this game. That was because Jackie Young had one of the most insane runs that I've seen in a very long time in the third quarter. She exploded for 21 points on 8 of 11 shooting in the third quarter. She finishes this game with 32 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal. That was like an MVP caliber performance by Jackie Young. And when you watch her play the way that she did in this game, where she's scoring at all 3 levels, she's defending, she's kind of doing it all. She really is one of the best guards in the WNBA, and she has been for a long time. She was on my all WNBA team, and even earlier in the season when she wasn't shooting great, she was having a pretty good year overall. But now it's just taken to another level. This has been by far her best playoff run of her career. And she just took over this game in the third quarter. She was on an absolute heater. I thought she wasn't going to get the record because she had 19 points with the clock winding down. And 21 points is the most points by any WNBA player in finals history in particular quarter. It's also the most points by any Aces player in any quarter, regular season or otherwise. So she broke multiple records with that 21-point performance in the third quarter. And honestly, that kind of put the game away completely. And the Mercury really, they made a little bit of a run in the fourth quarter. Sasha Sabali, who had a pretty abysmal start to this game, she finds a rhythm in the fourth, but it was too late because Jackie Young kind of put this game away in the third quarter. So ultimately, it was the A'ja Wilson and Jackie Young show. They combined for 62 points. It's the second most points by a duo in WNBA Finals history. And ultimately, that's what everybody's going to discuss. I think I do want to give a shout out to the third member of the Aces Big Three who had an exceptional game that might fly under the radar just because she didn't put up the numbers that her counterparts put up. But Chelsea Gray finishes with 10 points, 10 assists, 8 rebounds, 3 steals, and 3 blocks. And Chelsea Gray has a gift that she can slap the ball out of people's hands on drives like nobody else that I've seen play basketball, honestly. And she was in consideration for my all-defense team. Like, I really did consider it, and she ended up not being on there. But she has had some ridiculous defensive moments in these playoffs. And today, I think, was maybe her best defensive performance yet, where she has Alyssa Thomas, in the paint, about to recover a loose ball for layup, and she hits it off her knee. Like, she did that a bunch of times in this game. And she, finished the game 2 rebounds short of a triple-double. And I think if she had, she probably would have gotten a little bit more credit for this all-around performance. But just another massive Chelsea Gray game in the finals. What's new? But the Big Three did it. They put this game away, and they completely outplayed the Mercury's Big Three. I mentioned Sasha Sabali had a really tough beginning to this game. She was 1 of 9 to start this game. Finishes with 22 points on 7 of 19 shooting, so the final box score is not going to look terrible for her, but her process was terrible at the beginning of this game. I would say the first 3 quarters, she was really not playing a good one. And she does find a rhythm in the fourth, and if they had made a bit of a run, I would spend more time talking about it. But it wasn't just that she was missing open shots. She was taking bad shots, and that's been the knock on her, is that she sometimes has poor shot selection. In the playoffs, you just can't afford to take bad shots. And she certainly took some bad ones in this game. Early shot clock shots. Ryan Ruocco, the play-by-play announcer for this game, was talking about that quite a bit, was that she was kind of bailing out the Aces a couple of times with these early possession shots. Kahleah Copper once again has a massive first half. Kahleah Copper in the first half of the series has been exceptional. She had 15 points to lead the way for the Mercury in the first half of this game, but only 8 in the second. So she was their most consistent source of offense in this game, 23 points on 9 of 18 shooting. But she hasn't been able to sustain her level of aggression and efficiency in the second halves of these games. And then Alyssa Thomas had probably the worst game I've seen her play in a while. 10 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, 3 turnovers. But the foul trouble really hampered her. She finishes with 4 fouls, but she had 4 fouls in the third quarter. And I did feel like it took away a little bit from her aggression defensively and offensively with her screen setting and all those things. Like, for Alyssa Thomas to play in foul trouble, it really does hinder her quite a bit. So she just was not the offensive force that we have come accustomed to seeing in these playoffs and really in the last few years. And big credit to the Aces defense and to Becky Hammon, because that was intentional to kind of get the ball out of her hand and to force her into more uncomfortable moments, actions. And so it was, they did a good job on Alyssa Thomas. I think they did a good job overall defensively, holding the Mercury to 78 points. The Mercury shoots 40.8% from the field, just 17.9% from three. So nowhere near their game one performance. And if you're the Phoenix Mercury, you're looking at this game and you are kicking yourself for losing game one, because you're not going to win a game where Jackie Young and A'ja Wilson play like this, and not when you're shooting as poorly as you're shooting, and they shot poorly in this game. But game one was right there. Game one, they hit enough threes. They held the big three to enough, poor shots and misses as they possibly could. And that should have been a win for the Phoenix Mercury. And instead, because of what happened from the Aces bench, because of Dana Evans, because of Jewel Lloyd, they lose that one. And now they're down 2-0. And I don't see a world where they come back and win the series. Obviously, anything can happen. I'm not counting them out completely, but I've definitely changed my prediction, and I did not change my prediction last game. Last game, I stuck with the Phoenix Mercury pulling out the series. I no longer have confidence that that's going to happen, and in particular because they just don't have an answer for A'ja Wilson, and she has been the best player in the series by a pretty decent margin. Jackie Young obviously was exceptional today, but in the battle between her and Alyssa Thomas, the gap has been relatively sizable, and that can't happen for the Mercury to pull off the series. So part of me wonders, should they go deeper into their bench? Should they just see if they have something with Kalani Brown or Lexi Held or any of these players that at moments during the season were key contributors for Phoenix? Honestly, DeWanna Bonner has accomplished a lot in her career. I don't think she's giving the Mercury enough in these playoffs. She had a big game 4 versus the Lynx, and in the fourth quarter she hit a few big shots, but overall, she's just airballed too many shots. Defensively, she's being exploited by stronger, bigger players. I just don't see this matchup working for her. Honestly, most of these playoffs, I don't think she's been effective enough to warrant the minutes that she's played. So she has 23 minutes in this game. I can't say that I justify that. She has not been bringing enough in any part of the game, honestly, to warrant those minutes. I don't know exactly if you have any tidbits. You got to go back to the drawing board. And I saw Nikias Duncan from No Dunk Spot say that Nate Tibbetts kind of over adjusted in this game, and I had that thought a couple times watching this as well, because they were right there in game one, and they come back in game two and they do approach multiple things differently, and so I do think the series is over. In my head, I'm not going to go out and say the Mercury have no chance, but this was a dominant kind of cover-to-cover win by the Aces, and the Aces now look like a championship team. They really do. And we're about to have discussions around where this dynasty ranks amongst the league's all-time dynasties. A'ja Wilson, fresh off her 4th MVP, could be looking at a 3rd title in just a couple of days here. And I don't want to jump the gun, and obviously there's time left, but right now this Mercury team does not look poised to come back and win 2 games in a row and tie the series up. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen next. They play again on Wednesday, and then again on Friday. So in a week here we could be looking at a tied series, but I have a feeling that that's not where this is all headed. And you saw Chelsea Gray was mic'd up in this game, and she was so hyped. She was so emotional. She was so locked in on both ends. And Chelsea Gray was a winner. She's a 2022 Finals MVP. She has been there before. And I feel like she has kind of all the elements that they're needing right now. And again, a lot about winning a title is about, do you have the pieces? Do you have the moments? Do you have championship role players excelling in what they do best? And right now in this series, they've had a little bit of everything. They've had the bench contributions. They've had the veteran leadership. They've had the A'ja Wilson MVP performances, and then obviously Jackie Young. So very much a disappointing outcome for the Mercury, who were eager to tie this up, just as they have the last 2 rounds. But the Las Vegas Aces were not the New York Liberty of Game 2. They were not the Minnesota Lynx of Game 2. They were a team on a mission, and they very well might be looking at a WNBA title in just a couple days here. So we'll have more coverage on WNBA Today on CLNS. Let me know what you think about this game and about whether this final series is over in the comment section. Leave a like, leave a subscribe, and we'll have more stuff. We're going to discuss some CBA things, all the drama between Kathy Engelbert and Napisa Collier and all of that. That's more analysis is coming on that as well, because that is kind of the undercurrent here in these finals, is that there's basketball being played, but there's also a much bigger picture story developing as well. So we'll have coverage and thoughts on all of that too. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching and hope you enjoy the rest of the week.